So they just show up, and the government has to make sure you're allowed to do that.
They do. They need to make sure that my chickens are okay and that they have enough space. But I'm only feeding myself with my eggs. So it is funny that the people that are feeding the masses are allowed to crowd their chickens and feed them whatever they want and feed them waste and get away with it, where people that are just feeding themselves in their small communities and their neighbors seem to be the ones that are being harassed.
Yeah, going in one of these big facilities, it's like going to a horror movie. I mean, words can't describe it. I ought to go into one sometime. I haven't been in one in like 20 years, and because I've actually lived and worked in the country for a time. It is unbelievable. I mean, if I describe what these giant facilities are like, people wouldn't believe me. And again, they use animal cruelty laws to harass someone with their own chickens for their own house and their own family. Mm-hmm. But happy chickens, hopping around in the yard, in the tree, whatever, jumping in your lap like domesticated chickens do, happy, not ever being eaten, not ever being killed. But then on top of it, you've got these giant facilities, and it's Big Agra writing all this. And notice, that's a pre-regulation on you, like you've done something wrong, so you can't be trusted. And now they're saying they want to inspect our gardens because we might be doing something wrong in those too. Again, in America, you're not allowed to do something with your own garden. I mean, this isn't a free country.
Right. And the odd thing is that there's so much transparency with our neighborhood farmer. You can just walk onto their land and you can see how they're growing their food. You can make your own decision about whether you want to eat that food or not. But these large processing plants, as I try to get in them with my cameras, I tried to get in them when I was making my documentary. And of course, you're not allowed in them, and you're certainly not allowed to film in them. And so now I have a rule that if a farmer won't let me film their property, then I won't eat their food.
Well, they are so scared, as you know. Talk to me, both of you, ladies, about the movement I'm seeing, but give me your expert perspective on it. I'm seeing a huge exodus, especially by nouveau riche, middle class, upper middle class, but also working class, to rural areas and forming communities and really boosting the level of quality of life, the health of children. And I think this has really got the system scared. And there is a war against small farms and true sustainable living. And Farmageddon details this.
Yeah, and I think that's what the real value of Farmageddon is as a farmer and a scientist, someone who has the animals, who works the land. When USDA comes after you, they use all of their weight, and you think you're totally alone and you're just one person fighting against them, and that, you just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And what Farmageddon demonstrates is we're not alone, that unfortunately this is happening all across the country. It's happening even up in Canada, and it's opening people's eyes and to showing, that the government is not there to protect our food safety. If you want safe food, it's like Kristin said, you want to be able to go to your neighbor and go to your local farm, and that's where you're going to find food, the good food. And I am seeing a lot of people heading out into the country and taking matters into their own control to keep their family healthy through what they feed them.
And I think this is the real revolution, is in health, is in vitamins, minerals, farming. Even if you live in the semi-rural area, just begin. And then that'll start making you think about what else you're eating from the store. But it's not just growing it yourself. Like you said, it's being in the communities where people are growing. Then you'll find out not just what's healthy, but who's got the really good stuff. And it's a real human community. And there's nothing like getting your feet in the black soil. There's nothing like integrating and hooking back in and finding your humanity.
Yes, totally.
Right.
Yeah, that's scaring them, isn't it?
I think it is. And they just keep applying more and more pressure. USDA has their own investigative and enforcement services, so it's literally their own police force. And when they came after our sheep and they couldn't find anything wrong with them, they did a criminal investigation to see if anything that when we imported the sheep was illegal. And they couldn't find anything wrong there. So then they did a personal criminal investigation of my husband, Larry. And I'm hearing this more and more.
Gibson Guitars has certified government legal wood that's already fallen. They've been investigating them off and on for 10 years. And last time I heard, just raided them again. Because they dare to make things in America.
Right.
And they've been told, move to China, you'll be totally left alone. There's a war against America.
It's bizarre. So the reason why I made this film is to give these farmers and these small business people a voice, because it just doesn't seem like they have a voice in the mainstream media. The government always gets the last word, and it's always the word of safety, where if you watch my movie, my opinion is that they're barking up the wrong tree as far as safety is concerned. And like you said, condoning and allowing, GMOs and chemicals in our food and, animal cruelty and animal crowding and then on the other side, harassing the small farmer who's trying to do things as best as they can.
Well, just the look of the film, too, and the shots, the talent that you brought to bear making this film, it's something everybody's got to see. Farmageddon, available at Infowars.com. Incredible. We're going to come back and continue with both you ladies and talk about some more of the stories in the film. Folks, I live in a farming community outside Austin. I have family that farms and ranches in East Texas, from, cows to grapes. And let me tell you, they've got environmental spies everywhere harassing everybody, saying we're bad for the environment and leaving Big Agri alone. This is serious fascism. Right now, going back to Linda Faillace. Linda, you're going to be leaving us here in about 5 minutes, and the director's going to stay with us for another 30 to get more into the film here and open the phones up for some of the farming victims out there who want to get involved on air. But what else can you share with us now that you've been a victim of this for so long? And earlier you were talking about that you've seen it intensifying now. Yeah,
I was hoping that what I had seen in Farmageddon and what I was reading, that it was going to make USDA and the FDA back off of attacking farmers, but unfortunately it seems to be increasing. And the good thing is that people are not staying quiet. People are speaking up. People like Kristin are making a documentary and educating people out there. USDA spent $1 million, according to their own documents, $1 million watching us. And when we took them to court, we got the diaries of, we called them the goons, that were watching us. And the day was broken down into 15-minute segments. And it would say where each of our family members were. And you're talking about our daughters were 13 and 14, and our son is 15 years old. And they're keeping track of us. And to spend taxpayers' money doing that for disease, sheep that were not diseased, that were perfectly healthy, for a disease that doesn't exist, is ridiculous, in my opinion. And we're just one of many people out there that this is happening to.
Well, it's true. And again, even the news has said, why is there a war against people? And it's these bureaucrats, and they act like it's dirty and bad. And what'd you think of Rawsome Foods, or the lady that was going to go to jail for a garden in her yard, and there wasn't even a law against it, and the city said, well, we don't like it. I mean, it's just wild.
Right. The amount of power that the government has is incredible. And the person who ordered these criminal investigations of us was just a mid-level bureaucrat. And what's really bizarre is that you have all these organizations, such as the FDA and the USDA, that those are the people making the laws, not the people that we're electing, but the people that are not elected, people that get appointed. And I think there's a real imbalance of power there.
Well, and they also, again, just revel in harassing people. And this is all Agenda 21. That's what they're doing. They use environmental rules and other things to shut down the general economy. And then the globalists that write up all these world regulations, because it's being done universally across the planet, they are exempt. So it allows certain groups to operate and others not to. Kristin, do you have any comments to add to what she said on this point?
No, I'm just... unfortunately, she's right. It does seem to be really ramping up. When I finished my movie, Rawson Foods had just had their second raid, and so that raid is in my movie. And after I finished, and actually the movie released theatrically, that's when they had another raid. And James and Sharon Palmer, I know that you've covered this extensively, and I appreciate it. Got thrown in jail for a number of days, and they were treated horribly, and they've been harassed. And Rawson Foods is completely shut down now. And there's been 2 other Amish farms that have been shut down, and every day I hear of a new farm that's being shut down. So I find it very sad that it's increasing, not decreasing.
No, it's a reign of terror, and it's outrageous. I want to thank Linda for joining us, her book, author of Mad Sheep. We're going to come back and talk to the director on the other side. The film is Farmageddon. Get it out to everyone you know. It's available at Infowars.com. We will expose and defeat these tyrants. Kristin Canty is our guest for another 30 minutes. I know we got loaded phones that were on before I went to her. And I want to be able to talk to all those people, but I think it's important that we be able to talk to some of the farmers involved. So I'm going to do this. Guys, can we fire up our phone system here? Is that possible? I'm going to fire it up right now. The phone system isn't open yet. It'll open in about 2 minutes. So be ready for the phone calls to come in. We'll open it. You're able to get in for about a minute. 50 phone calls will come in. Or I'm going to open my phone system up instead of the Genesis phone system so you can get in. And I'll try to get to the others later. Bill, Peter, Levi, Carol, and others that are holding there patiently. But if you're a farmer, rancher, your quick horror story in 60 seconds, or your good story of the loving federal government out of their jurisdiction, that's another issue. Now we have TSA at checkpoints on highways and with undercovers spying on people on buses and restaurants. East Germany had it. Cuba has it. Why not us? All the science fiction dystopic movies do. Well, we got to have that. While John Corzine steals billions. The number to join us, if you're a farmer or rancher out there, is 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. I'll get that out one more time when we come back from break. This is a short segment, but let's get back, Kristin, to the film itself and some of the other stories that are in it and why people need to see it.
Well, there's a woman in Ohio. I don't know if you covered this one, but it's the Manna Storehouse. And she found 40 Amish farms around her that had no way to get their product to market. So she had a great idea where 1 week she would go and get eggs from one farmer and vegetables from another and chicken and beef. And she brought it back to her house, and she shared these duties with her neighbors. And so the next week, another neighbor would go around and collect all this food and bring it back. And so eventually it got bigger and bigger. And so the Ohio Department of Agriculture caught wind of it. And their response to that was to go in with, I think, as many as 11 armed agents. She had 8 kids in the house that were homeschooled, and they kept the family behind closed doors for 6 hours while they tore her house apart, stole her computers, took her cell phones. Her son was in Iraq at the time, and he was calling, and they wouldn't let her answer the phone, and they took their phones. And they took all of their meat and all of their food that was for their own consumption and for the co-op, all for a third-degree misdemeanor. And actually, that family was never charged with anything. They ended up never really finding anything to charge them with, and yet that was the terror that they endured. So these were the kinds of stories that got me angry, and I couldn't let it go, and that's when I traveled around. And
there's got to be class action suits against Big Pharma and Big Agri, because on record, they are the ones funding and lobbying for regulations and for this harassment. And then every time they cause some big food crisis, they then sick more bureaucrats on innocent small groups.
Right. I mean, the problem is that there was a class action. There was a suit in this case, the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund and the Ohio